I took my son to his room to sleep. After that, I returned to the guest room to open my laptop and start drafting the divorce agreement. This year marked the 7th year of my marriage to Henry. It was also the 7th year of us living apart. Now, I had finally decided to let go of him. Knock knock. I opened the door to see my 7-year-old son holding a toy airplane. Mommy, are we really going to move away? He looked at me, his eyes full of reluctance. But Uncle Parker hugged me tonight. Does that mean he likes me now? I froze for a moment, a little dazed. Even after 7 years of marriage, Henry never allowed our son to call him Daddy. When our son was 2, Henry took him to the supermarket. On the way, they ran into an acquaintance. When our son accidentally called him Daddy, Henry put him down and made him walk home. By the time they got home, our son had fallen countless times, and his knees and palms were scraped raw. When our son was 4, he begged Henry to take him to the amusement park for a long time. However, once again, Henry let go of his hand at the park because our son casually called him Daddy. That was how my 4-year-old child got swallowed up by the huge crowd. When they finally found him, our son was hiding in a bush, crying so hard he could barely breathe. After that, our son started calling him Uncle Parker, and our family became a complete joke. My nose tingled with pain at the thought of this. I could not help but pull my son into my arms. Lyle, Uncle Parker's favorite person, is coming back. We can't stay in this house any longer. His eyes dimmed, but he hurriedly held up the airplane model in front of me. But Mommy, Uncle Parker gave me a gift tonight. If he didn't like me, why would he give me a gift? His expression was so desperate. He was trying to prove that his father really loved him. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What was I supposed to say? How could I say it? Should I tell him that Henry was happy because his first love was coming back from overseas? Should I tell him that he only got the airplane because of another woman's influence? I could not say anything. I quietly swallowed my bitterness and heartache as usual, covering it up with a lie to protect my child. I kissed my son on the forehead and wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye where he could not see. A mother would keep up any illusion to protect her child, even when it hurt the most. Holding back the urge to sob, I smiled and asked, Lyle, if Mommy wanted to take you away from Uncle Parker, would you be okay with that? My son froze for a moment, then asked with a soft voice, can't we stay? I haven't even called him Daddy properly yet. I could not hold back the tears anymore and bit my lip. Lyle, Uncle Parker doesn't want us to stay in his house anymore. Mommy will take you away, okay? My son pulled his hand back, holding the airplane model tightly. He was silent for a long time before he finally spoke. I want to give Uncle Parker 3 more chances. If he really doesn't love us, then we'll leave him forever. Closing my eyes, I agreed to my son's request. All right. Henry, my son and I would give you another 3 chances. After that, you will never have a place in our lives again. It was Friday, the day Henry's first love returned to the country. They were college sweethearts and got engaged right after graduation. Just a month before their wedding, Evelyn fell in love at first sight with a foreigner. She abandoned Henry and went abroad in pursuit of her true love. From that moment, their lives deviated, their paths never crossing again. Henry was devastated for a long time. That was when I became his assistant. One night, after too many drinks, we conceived a child. Just like that, I became his secret wife, the woman he barely acknowledged and the mother of a child he never wanted. After printing out the divorce agreement I finalized yesterday, I started preparing my resignation letter. Unlike my son, I had long grown used to Henry's coldness. I was not foolish enough to keep waiting for a man like him to change. 7 years was more than enough to shatter any naive, romantic illusions I once had. Serena, are you really resigning? A colleague caught a glimpse of my screen and asked in a hushed voice. I smiled, already prepared with my excuse. Yeah. My son's father is overseas. I'm planning to take him and move there so we can finally be together as a family. She nodded. That makes sense. Raising a kid alone here must be exhausting for you. Honestly, we all kind of assumed you were a single mom. I could not help but laugh when I heard that, but it was bitter. I was not a single mother, yet I was treated worse than one. My eyes started to sting, but I quickly masked it with a practiced smile, unwilling to let anyone notice. Just as I submitted my resignation, Henry walked in with Evelyn. She walked ahead of him with a gentle smile on her face. He followed behind her, his gaze clinging to her every move. He was unwilling to look away for even a second. A colleague nudged me and whispered, "Serena, do you see that? Our CEO is finally showing some emotion for once." I forced a smile, but it felt like a storm was raging inside. All it had taken was waiting a decade for this stony man to show his soft side. Still, Henry. Even if I waited a lifetime, he would never look at me the way he was looking at her now. As they passed by, I could not stop myself. I called out to him, "Hen." Before I could even finish saying his name, he shot me a cold, warning glance. "Miss Clark, do you need something?" His cold words carried an unspoken warning, a command for me to swallow my words. A reminder to remember my place. I lowered my gaze, forcing myself to hold back the tears welling in my eyes. "Sorry, Mr. Parker." He gave a slight nod, then immediately looked away. He kept his focus fixed on Evelyn as though she were his entire world. He was my husband. The father of my child. However, he made no effort to hide his love for another woman in front of me. It was ironic yet sobering. A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. Initially, I had wanted to tell him I was resigning. It seemed like there was no need to do so now. He did not care about me, after all. He did not care about my feelings or our child. Certainly not about this marriage. Back at my desk, my son called from his smartwatch. "Mommy, there's a meeting at school tonight, so we got out early today. Uncle Cooper brought me to you." I froze for a moment before instinctively getting up and walking outside. That was when I saw Henry reaching out to gently fix Evelyn's hair. Not far away, my son stood at the elevator. His backpack was slung over his tiny shoulders as he stared blankly at his father, tenderly caring for a woman he had never met before. Henry's gentleness and patience. My son and I had never seen it before. I was about to take him away when Henry finally noticed him. His body stiffened briefly, and he quickly withdrew his hand. However, in the next moment, he straightened up and continued walking past our son, shielding Evelyn with quiet determination. It was as though he did not even know the little boy standing there. A sharp pain stabbed through my heart. I quickly took my son's hand and led him back to my desk. Before I could say anything, his eyes turned red, and he asked in a soft voice, "Mommy, is that the person Uncle likes?" At that moment, I lost all ability to speak. I could only nod, tears brimming in my eyes. My son did not ask anything else. He silently pulled out his workbook and started writing. However, his tears still fell, soaking into the pages. I held him close. He was my whole world. "Henry, you had 2 chances left before my son and I walked away forever." After packing up, I took my son home. While we were on our way home, he suddenly asked, "Mommy, can Uncle Parker come to the meeting tonight?" In our 7 years of marriage, Henry had never attended a single one of his son's school meetings. I could not bear to say no when I looked into his hopeful eyes. I sent Henry a message. "Our son has a school meeting tonight. Do you have time?" As expected, there was no response. My son lowered his head, clutching his backpack. "He doesn't want to come, does he?" He forced a smile as though he was trying to convince himself. "It's okay. Uncle Parker is busy." I understand. My heart felt like it was being crushed under a heavy weight when I heard those words. Just as I was about to speak, my phone chimed. It was Henry. "I'm free. I'll be there." Shock and joy surged through me. I immediately turned my screen to my son. "Lyle, look. Daddy said he's coming." He was stunned for a moment, but then his face lit up with pure excitement. 7 years. This was the first time Henry had agreed to come to something with us. With that promise, my son was happy for the entire trip home. He told me how many times his teacher had praised him, how many awards he had won, and how he had scored high marks on his tests. With bright eyes, he told me, "Mommy, I was elected class monitor this semester. The teacher said they'll announce it at the meeting tonight." He hesitated and asked, "Mommy, if Daddy sees how well I'm doing in school, do you think he'll like me more?" I was startled for a moment before my heart started to ache even more. I prayed silently, hoping that Henry would not break his promise just this once. I just wanted my son's wish to come true before we left, even if it was nothing more than our own self-deception. The clock ticked on, minute after minute. The meeting was about to start. Henry never showed up. However, Evelyn did update her social media. Henry was sitting beside an unfamiliar little boy, patiently guiding him as they built a Lego set together in the photo. Her caption read, "Future number 1 dad." I turned toward the living room. My 7-year-old son sat quietly on the couch, playing with his own Lego set. The same toys. The same age. The same need for love. However, his father was never here with him. Sensing my gaze, my son looked up at me. His little hands tightened around his Lego pieces as he spoke cautiously. "Mommy, is Daddy busy again?" I froze, looking into my son's eyes, unable to tell him the truth. His father was not busy. He was with another child. I could not bring myself to say it. All I could do was pull him into my arms, my heart aching for him like it had done so many times before. "It's okay, sweetheart. You still have me. Mommy will always be here for you." He did not ask any more questions, but his eyes turned red. On the way to school, neither of us mentioned Henry again. It was as though Henry had never promised anything and this family had only ever been the two of us. "Henry, you had one last chance." After parking the car, I took my son's hand and walked into the school. However, the moment we stepped into the classroom, I stopped in my tracks. "Henry." "Daddy." Henry was sitting by the window. He instinctively looked up at the sound of our voices, his pupils contracting in shock. "What are you doing here?" The surprise in his words made me stop in my tracks. I had a bad premonition. My son had been in elementary school for 6 months, yet Henry did not even know his class. My son did not notice. Overjoyed, he ran up to him. "Daddy, you." Henry frowned. "What did you just call me?" The joy on my son's face froze for a moment before he quickly corrected himself, his voice all too practiced. "Uncle Parker, you're sitting in the wrong seat. Mine is up front." He looked up at Henry, his eyes shining with happiness. This was the first time Henry had ever attended a class meeting and the first time he had kept his word. However, the excitement did not last long. A second later, Henry averted his gaze. "I'm not in the wrong seat. This is my place." My son stood still, confused. Just as he was about to say something, a small figure suddenly pushed him aside. "Go away. He's my daddy." Instinct took over. I immediately pulled my son into my arms, shielding him. Henry also stood up, but he hesitated momentarily when he met Evelyn's surprised gaze. Then, just as quickly, he moved the boy behind him to protect him. His voice was stiff as he said, "Ethan didn't mean it. I apologize on his behalf." Both my son and I froze. My son had never once received this kind of protection or concern from his father. "Who is he?" I rose to my feet and asked in a soft voice. Henry hesitated for a moment. After meeting my gaze, a flicker of guilt flashed in his eyes. "A friend's child." "Is that so?" I murmured, but deep down, I already knew the answer. This was the boy from Evelyn's photo. The child Henry was willing to be there for. Sure enough, Evelyn walked in with a bottle of water a moment later. She looked surprised to see us. "Miss Clark? Are you here for the meeting too?" She glanced around. "Why don't I see the child's father?" My gaze instinctively shifted to Henry at her words. He avoided my eyes. Realization hit me. He was afraid I would expose him. For a moment, I felt like I was transported back to the day Evelyn returned. That night, the ever-cold Henry had gotten drunk for the first time. When he heard his son call him Daddy, he had actually smiled for the first time. My son and I had thought that our wait was finally over. However, the next moment, the name he whispered was not mine. It was Evelyn's. That was when I knew. He had mistaken us for someone else. I tightened my grip on my son's hand, ready to speak. However, before I could say anything, my son beat me to it. "My dad is overseas. He's very busy, so I don't want to bother him." With one sentence, the two of them were left stunned. I looked down at my son in disbelief, seeing his reddened and welled-up eyes. He was looking at Henry, smiling as though he finally understood everything. Uncle Parker, Mommy and I are leaving now. All the sadness in the world was lodged in my chest at that moment. As I turned around, Henry suddenly grabbed my arm. What did Lyle just say? Henry looked at our son in shock as though he wanted to confirm something. Was it because the child he always pushed away had learned to distance himself? I forced a smile, feeling a sharp sting of irony. He didn't say anything, Mr. Parker. The meeting is about to start. I pulled my arm away from his and led my son to the seats up front. Even as I sat down, I could still feel the burning gaze from behind. However, no matter how hot that gaze was, it could not warm my heart. The meeting started on time. I held my son close, wishing for the first time that the teacher's voice would be sterner. I wanted it to drown out the intimate conversation between the family of three behind us. As expected, the teacher called Lyle up. They announced that he had been chosen as the class monitor for this semester and asked him to give a speech. However, he refused. He did not want to get up, nor did he want to speak. I knew why. He did not want to see Henry sitting with that child. He did not want to admit that his father would rather attend a meeting with someone else's child. He did not want to let the other child proudly call him daddy. Afterward, I took my son to the teacher's office to handle his withdrawal paperwork. When we stepped out of the school gates, we ran into Henry waiting for someone. He was standing on the side of the road, holding a stick of cotton candy. He looked like he had been waiting for a while. Why did you take so long to come out? Let's go home together. As he said this, he handed the cotton candy to my son. Going home together. Once, this was what my son and I had looked forward to the most. Now, it just felt like a cruel joke. Lyle reached out and took the cotton candy from Henry's hand. The frown he had worn all night finally softened into a smile. My heart softened when I saw his hopeful eyes, and I was about to agree, but then I heard Henry speak. Evelyn's kid is a transfer student, so he couldn't compete for the class monitor position. How about you ask your son to talk to the teacher? Maybe he could give up the position of class monitor this time and let Ethan have the chance instead. The casual remark made both me and my son cold inside. Sure enough, everything came with a hidden price tag with Henry. Even a stick of cotton candy. Okay, Uncle Parker. It was my son's voice. With red-rimmed eyes, he put the cotton candy into his mouth. Henry's expression softened slightly, but just as he was about to reach out to hold my son's hand, his phone rang. It was Evelyn. Henry, Ethan isn't feeling well. Can you come over now? Henry's face changed, and he immediately turned and got into his car. As he closed the door, my son suddenly shouted loud enough for him to hear, "Daddy." Henry froze for a moment, sticking his head out and meeting my son's red-rimmed eyes. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Drive safe." This time, he did not correct Lyle. However, that was the last time my son would ever call him daddy. That night, my son and I packed our bags and booked tickets to leave the country. We did not mention Henry again. The living room would no longer have a light left on all night, with two hopeful people waiting for him. The next morning, we headed to the airport with our bags in tow to check in. Before turning my phone off, I sent Henry one last message. Be happy. The next moment, our chat, which had been barren for so long, was filled with furious messages.